we started off doing components because that was the original business plan, really. But what I realised quite early on was there were no commercial suppliers of cubesats. People were building cubesats, but it's mostly universities or research organisations. So there was no companies doing it, and it was still being very much dismissed by all the big companies. Oh, cubesats are toys, and all the space agencies weren't really taking much notice of it. But the funny thing is, by the way, see, to make a satellite that's that small, to do all the same things that a larger satellite does, it's not a toy. It's very, very difficult to do that. So, but we started off quite early, looking at ways to do our first satellite and develop that competence. So we worked from, I'd say about 2007, we were actively trying to pursue that. And it took us until 2014 to get something launched. So it shows you how long it took. We had no money. That was the biggest problem. I raised in total over the years with Clyde Space, before we became EAC Clyde Space, less than $1 million. So you see these other companies today that are raising tens of millions of dollars and doing different things. So we done all that with pretty much nothing, no money. So it's very difficult, very bootstrapped way of doing it.
This is Jason Kanigan, host of the Cold Star Project, founder of Cold Star Technologies, this thing, a data science and process improvement firm. I am here with Craig Clark. Finally, man, you are one of the first people I asked when I switched over to space fully, back in the fall. And we're now in the spring. And it's just, you got a real business stuff going on, and we needed a little pause here for you to be able to meet. So it's awesome that you're here. You are the founder and CSO at a company that is now known as AAC Clyde Space. And it's very cool. You are doing exactly the kind of thing that I'm interested in, which is manufacturing small sats, cubesats. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry it's taken so long. It's been a lot on.
That's okay. You know what? And I'm going to pop out here and say, for those thinking about hosting their own show or podcast, it's not the technical side of it that's the grind or the hard part or anything like that. It's the relentless going after booking folks. And it's not taking no for an answer. I don't think I pursued you intensely or anything. I left you alone for some months and that. But if you want a guest, you've got to stick with it, and it may not be a super quick thing. So you kind of got your chops at this company called Surrey Satellite Tech. You were there for 11 years as a team leader in a couple different roles in that. And I'm curious, what was the most important thing that you learned in those roles?
Well, it was, Surrey Satellite Technology, where I joined them when there was about 20 or so people. And that company, it spun out of the University of Surrey. So it really was a startup kind of stage. They were the best known company in the world for small satellites at the time. So this is back in 1994. But it was also because it was in a university, it was a very academic research environment. It's quite relaxed. It wasn't very commercial. And there was, I think the main thing for me about working there was when I joined them, everyone was a high achiever. And I was straight out of university. I hadn't really worked in industry before. And it just basically being in that environment forced you to have to raise your game. You were expected to be up there with them. So you just had to do it. Whereas I think that there are different organizations where you're maybe pigeonholed right from the start, and you're just a graduate, so you just need to go and do this thing over here. You were thrown in at the deep end, given responsibility, and it was a fantastic place to work. Really enjoyed it. Had great times, worked on some great missions, but also because it was a small business, I worked on all sorts of aspects of the satellite and learned so much as well. So it was really a great place to learn about the small satellite industry.
Awesome. Craig, I'm a big believer in having folks who graduate from university or college go out there and really direct their career, and not just do what I call the caveman tool method of job hunting, which is fire out a blizzard of resumes to anybody and hope that something good comes in. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do, and it results in an accidental career and whatnot. So how did you, this question will help the students, how did you pick Surrey Satellite to join? How did you pick them as a target?
Well, this is going to be not a great answer for you because, I'm from Glasgow, which you can probably tell by the accent. And in the early 90s, there was really no jobs here.
Mm.
Great university, so lots of good graduates, but there's a massive brain drain. So I went for jobs. I'd done power engineering at university, so electronics with power supplies, that type of thing. And I applied for all sorts of different positions. There wasn't really many jobs going around at the time. I messed up quite a few interviews. I was really green. I was so naive about everything. And I just happened to get offered the job at Surrey Satellites. I was very lucky. But I
Yeah.
was lucky because out of all the jobs I went for, I would have taken that. And it was the only job I got offered.
Huh.
And maybe it was just fate.
Yeah. Well, good for you. So, I mean, I guess it just made the short list for you by the benefit of being one of the very few space companies in your area. Then.
Well, it was in Surrey, so in
Yeah.
my area, I still had to move 400
Mm-hmm.
miles. So
Mm-hmm.
for you guys in the States, that's nothing, but it's the one end of the UK
Yeah.
to the other.
Yeah, in my
So
case, I'm Canadian. I came from Vancouver, and I'm in North Carolina for the last 10
yeah,
years. So I really did do the big move. But yeah, 400 miles is some distance, and there's a lot of folks in North America who don't leave their hometown either. So it's it's really up to the individual. But okay, so let's see if you can give us a snapshot of the UK space industry right now. I'm curious what you believe its principal expertise is, or competitive advantages, and maybe where it's headed.
well, I mean, the UK space sector is quite different to the US one, and historically has been very much dominated by Airbus, used to be called Astrum, and a few other things as well, Mark Marconi in the past. So a big company, global company, really dominates our sector. You know, if there's any lobbying with government, it's by them. There's very little by any other companies because they just don't have the resource. So it really in the UK historically has skewed the activities towards the type of missions and things that the Airbus want to work on. That's definitely changing now, though. There's been a real shake-up. There's an ambition within the UK to do 10% share of the global market, to really up the revenues coming from the space sector into the UK. And the only way to grow is not through investing in, you know, just it's difficult to do the same thing but more of it. You know, you need to do something different. You need to look for disruptive technologies. You need to be supporting high growth small businesses, and that means taking a different view. So that's what's been happening. So there's a real focus on applications. What are the new applications for space, especially using small satellites? Because of the great work that Surrey done over the years, and establishing the UK as a leader in small satellites, it gave the government an appetite to invest more in that area. So whenever you talk to people in the UK, there's a lot of chat about small sat launch, small sat applications, and small sat manufacturing. So there's a lot of investment going into that. And also, I should mention Scotland in this too, because Scotland has specifically highlighted that the small satellite sector as a growth sector for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of talk about Glasgow making more satellites than any other European city. Whereas 11 years ago, there was no satellites made here.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows you when there's a disruptive technology, there's a real opportunity to grow something where there wasn't something before. There was no space industry in Scotland until very recently, and now it's one of the fastest growing sectors for space in the world. So
Right.
we're going to be launching from Scotland, and I think that, you know, it doesn't need to be federal government. I mean, regional governments that also can do a lot of good to support disruptive technologies in different sectors. And for Scotland, it happens to be in the area that we focus, which is small satellites.
Okay. I want to go back to Surrey Satellite for a moment because I just thought of something. You said joining them. I mean, you could, as I did once, go to work for a large multinational company, and you do get pigeonholed. You get put in your cubicle and told, "Don't go out of your area, right? Your sphere of operation and your scope, right?" So if you're in production, don't go over to accounting and start messing around there. They don't like that. I know from personal experience, right? But when you work for a smaller company of high achievers, they want you to do that. In fact, the problems are usually very large and sitting over there like an angry monster. And if you go over there, other people will find out, whoa, that thing exists, right? So you said you had to up your game, and I'm curious if you've got an example or two of what that looked like. I think that would be really valuable for our viewers and listeners.
Well, I think that there's a lot of initiative within individuals. So if something needed done, you just go up and get on with it. I remember, like, we didn't have any reaction wheels for our satellites. All of the attitude control was done using kind of non-mechanical systems, so magnetometers, magnetorquers. There was a gravity gradient boom. That's how we done our pointing for our spacecraft for a long time. But there was a need to do 3-axis control for imaging missions. There was no reaction wheels, but because I'd done some motors, drives work at university, I was like, I'll design a reaction wheel. So
the thing that breaks the most often, I think.
Exactly. So we worked on it with some of the guys in the mech team. Just put it together. I mean, I don't think there's many companies where you can just go, right, I've got an idea, can I do this? And I'm like, yeah, so why don't you go and do that? go for it. And actually that led to me working on the Rosetta lander, which were approached by DLR at the time, because we'd been doing working wheels. They said, like, the flywheel that they were going to use on a lander kept on breaking when they vibed it because of the vibration environment was just so difficult to meet the requirements. And they asked if we could do something, so we took it on, and I ended up working on a mission that landed on a comet. So there's a bit of a design on a comet.
Very cool. Huh. Yeah, and you never know where that's going to lead.
Yeah.
So you mentioned municipal governments or local governments and that. You spent some time, and I think this is federal, on something called the UK Space Leadership Council. I did a very quick Google search of it and saw, I was surprised at how small of a group it is. I think there's 6 or 8 people or something like that on it. It's not some huge board and that. And I'm curious what you did there and what kind of impact or how little you think it has.
Well, I'm actually involved still in that. It's changed its name now. It's called the Space Sector Council. It's evolved over the years because the different science ministers have wanted a different approach. So the Space Leadership Council had David Willits as the co-chair, and that was quite a big meeting. There was a lot of people, but he was a very keen supporter of space. Really interesting time. I actually started though with Lord Drayson, who was a Labour science minister before that. Again, it's really interesting to work closely with politicians and see how things work. I'm actually quite surprised at how fast things move. I was assumed that politics would be slow, but it was quite snappy, making decisions and just doing things. It is, as I said earlier, our sector is quite dominated by Airbus, and now Surrey's owned by Airbus as well. So kind of the main players in our sector in the UK are one company. So you find on these councils there is a relatively biased representation from the kind of larger incumbents. And by the way, we still need big companies. So in the US, you need your Boeings, your Lockheeds, your Raytheons. You can't really, the sector wouldn't function without them. You'd also need the other players, the smaller players that are coming up with different ideas, are more agile. So there's a need for that. And I kind of see my voice on these councils that I attend as being, I'm not trying to be disruptive to the council meetings, but just to offer a different opinion, one that maybe, so if you're a VC-backed small business looking to grow, there needs to be support from government for them. There needs to be support from government for companies that have got great ideas, have got great ambition, but maybe don't have all the tools to make it happen. Maybe need a bit more support from government, and that's where I try to make a contribution. I've always tried to be, unbiased from my opinion, but also have to balance out the opinion of the larger companies that at the end of the day want to get as much money from the government as they can, which is fine as well. That's what their job is. But there needs to be a balanced approach from government, and I try to help with that.
Okay. I recall last fall maybe seeing an article about a spaceport coming possibly for the Edinburgh area. How does space launch work when you're not an equatorial country? So, does it matter?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it depends where you want to launch into. So the main launch site is going to be from the north of Scotland. So the one that the UK Space Agency selected is in Sutherland, which is it's quite far north from here. It's actually almost as far as driving to London from Glasgow. It's quite a journey.
Mm.
If you like driving cars, there's something called the North Coast 500, which is basically a beautiful drive around the north of Scotland. It's great scenery. So if you fancy that, come to Scotland when all of this
Bring your camera.
coronavirus thing is done. Do that. But it's right in the north, and there's nothing there. And the only issue is it does go over Icelandic waters, so fishing waters. So when they launch north, and the reason they launch north is so we can go into polar orbits. So you can get a sun-synchronous polar orbit from there, which is really, I mean, a lot of small satellites are launched into that, especially Earth observation satellites. So it's actually quite a good orbit for us for most of our missions. So that's why it's useful to launch from here.
Okay, well, let's hope that gets into operation pretty quick. So you decided to form this company called Clyde Space. How did you choose the name, and at what point, I mean, when did the decision hit you, like, okay, I'm going ahead and doing this?
That's a good question. So actually I wasn't very entrepreneurial, or at least I didn't think I was. My wife was actually from Scotland, and we'd been living down south for 11 years. And we started a family. I had a 1-year-old daughter. My wife was pregnant, and we decided we wanted to move back from Surrey to Glasgow to be closer to our families. And when I looked at Scotland, I thought there's no space industry, and I've just spent a decade learning how to build and design satellites, and I can't use that for anything. So I thought, well, that means a complete change in career, really. And I kind of was a bit scary, actually, to do that, and I didn't want to do it either. So someday, when I mentioned to a friend that I was going to move back to Glasgow, the first thing that he said to me was, and this is somebody I worked with at Surrey, he said to me, "Are you going to start your own business?" And I was like, "No, of course not," because I'd never thought of it before. But because the funny thing is, because he asked me, I started thinking, and I got a couple of books that I read about what kind of person it takes to start a business, got a bit of advice in it, and my wife and I decided that we were selling our house in England, so we'll just use some of the money to start a business. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just get a job. But actually, when you start a business, that's it. You start to get employees, you start to get contracts, you have obligations. There's no turning back. You're in. You're in for the long haul. You need to make it work. And it was basically grit and determination. First 7 years of starting a business is survival of the type of business. Mm-hmm. I mean, really. And then also we had the 2008 crash during that period. So it was quite interesting times to start a business, but I think we had a really good plan, a strategy of what we wanted to do, what type of technologies we're developing. And the CubeSats we were the first commercial company really to understand the potential of CubeSats in the world. And we just went for it and just really evangelized about CubeSats and what they could do. And I think that part of that has helped to create the sector that we're in today. You kind of had to make our market, if you know what I mean. It didn't exist. Mm-hmm. We had to fight to make it something that would be a sustainable thing.
Well, that's a follow-up question. First, I am curious where the name came from. Why isn't it called Clark Aerospace, let's say, or something?
Right. So funny, because I mean, in the UK, Clyde isn't a name; it's the name of a river. In the US, it's a name people get called. So nobody's called Clyde here. But Clyde the River Clyde runs through Glasgow, and there used to be a third of all the ships in the world were built on the River Clyde.
Oh, okay.
About 100 or so years ago. And so there's a real heritage of engineering and shipbuilding and technology in this area. It was really a kind of a nod to that, to call the company Clyde Space, because the romantic vision was that we will in the future build a third of all the spaceships in the world. So that's
okay. Well, that makes a heck of a lot more sense now. And I do like the heritage. And if you're local to that area, or even, probably national, right, you're going to recognize that as a thing. So that's really cool. This is Jason Kanigan from Cold Star Tech, and I'm excited to share with you a new offer from Cold Star that we are bringing out to help both space founders and venture capitalists who fund space companies. And it's on two levels. The lower level is a VC who is looking at possibly funding a space company, but they just don't get it. Right? And a lot of tech founders want to come out and create some sort of technical capability, but they do not understand business. And so you'll look and you'll go, where's the customer here? Where's the business model? And they'll go, but I want to make rockets or something, right? And it's really cool. Well, that, as we know from the dot-com era, is not a viable business model. And so you bring us in. We've got great technical expertise on the space side, folks who have done this sort of assessment before, like our technical engineering advisor, Dr. Rick Fleeter, myself in the process engineering field, plenty of other people with brains to look at this problem so that you don't have to blow your brains out trying to figure out how to make this work. And on the company side, it's a benefit for them because we will show them the roadmap to how you're going to get funded, how you will want to fund them, what changes to make to get VCs excited about putting money in. And so that's good for you. Right? The second level is at a deeper and higher level at the same time. It is for venture capitalists who have given a seed round to a company, a space company, and that has gone on for a little while, 6 months, a year, something like that. And it is time, as COVID has made it, to double down or get out. Those are pretty much the choices, right? It's time to invest further in a thing we already know, which seems to be the direction VCs are going in right now. They don't seem to want to look at new things or stop, just kill the project. And so the good news is, in that situation, there's a lot more going on. There's more meat for Cold Star experts to get in and analyze, right? You're going to have processes in place, whether they know it or not. We'll be able to flowchart those and maybe accurately document them for the first time so we can get some kind of value chain going in the organization. We'll be able to test whether the leadership is the right group of people or whether you're missing something, the strategic direction, the business model, all this stuff. So if this sounds interesting to you, reach out to us. You can email me at jason@coldstartech.com or just connect with me and message me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to do it. And I am excited to talk to you. The kind of transformation that we're able to offer here is beyond anything you'll see out there. And as a VC, this will save you so much time and energy, right? Like if you're a VC and you've got 100 companies to look at, you've got 3 days a year to look at each one maybe, right? That's not really good enough, is it? Wouldn't it be better to have experienced, expert space people who understand space, right? Look at this investment and tell you, here's a grade, right? Here are several grade areas. Is this thing ready to pour gasoline on the fire, or is it just going to go up in smoke? This is Jason Kanigan from Cold Star Tech. Let's get back to the interview. I am curious, though, and this is a thing I can delete out if you don't want to answer it, but I am curious how you got your first contracts, because there you are, you're a brand new startup. Yeah, you've got all your technical expertise, and you can probably call a few friends in kind of thing, it's a, hey, I'm funded, let's get started and build something. But I mean, where did you go and what did you do to get your first order?
So, I mean, a couple of things. So we got some support from Scottish government, so they've got an enterprise scheme. So we got a grant, which I worked on for quite a few months to get, which allowed us to develop a power system for cubesats. So we'd already started that. It wasn't really a contract, so it wasn't our first bit of revenue really. But I started going to conferences. In fact, the first conference I went to was in Japan at the IAC, and that was October 2005. And I just actually full-time started working in the company 2 weeks before. So I had a stand with a banner and product data sheets, and it was just me. Because you have to do that. You have to show we're here and this is what we want to do. So thinking big already. But the real first contract we had came from a friend, somebody who I'd worked with, who knew that I started a company and knew that I was doing power systems for small satellites, and they needed some solar panels. So I basically got a call from the guys in South Africa at Sunspace, and he said, we need 2 solar panels in 4 weeks. Can you deliver them? And I was like, yeah. So actually took 4.5 weeks, but I managed to source cells. They provided the substrates. We developed our processes, destroyed a test coupon, completely destroyed it. I had to do another one with different processes, verified all of that, made the panels, environmentally tested the panels, and delivered them in 4.5 weeks.
And maybe a larger company might not have been able to turn around that
I
fast.
don't think he would be able to do it again. And the funny thing is, Andrew Strain, who's our CTO, he just started the week that we got the contract. And at the end of it, he turned around to me and he said, "Is it always going to be like this?" Because it was the most, I mean,
very insane.
There's lots of funny stories about it. We vacuum bagged the solar panels after we laid the cells down with adhesive, and they had to go in the oven to cure. But we were borrowing somebody else's clean room, so we tried to put it in the oven in the clean room and it didn't fit. So I took the solar panels in the vacuum bag so they were sealed and put them in my oven in my house to cure the adhesive. So and actually they still work. They're launched years ago and they still operate. So when you're looking for your first contract, you do whatever it takes, to get that. So
and also, like, you were not trying to build the whole thing. You were building a component, and not being responsible for the entire picture to begin with. How long did it take before you got to the point where you were able to handle the full satellite build?
Well, we started off doing components because that was the original business plan, really. But what I realized quite early on was there were no commercial suppliers of cubesats. People were building cubesats, but it's mostly universities or research organizations. So there was no companies doing it. And it was still being very much dismissed by all the big companies. Oh, cubesats are toys. And all the space agencies weren't really taking much notice of it, But the funny thing is, by the way, to make a satellite that's that small, to do all the same things that a larger satellite does, it's not a toy. It's very, very difficult to do that. So, but we started off quite early, looking at ways to do our first satellite and develop that competence. So we worked from, I'd say about 2007, we were actively trying to pursue that. And it took us until 2014 to get something launched. So it shows you how long it took. We had no money. That was the biggest problem. I raised in total over the years with Clyde Space before we became EAC Clyde Space, less than $1 million. So you see these other companies today that are raising tens of millions of dollars and doing different things. So we done all that with pretty much nothing, no money. So it's very difficult, very bootstrapped way of doing it.
It sounds to me like you were pioneering that industry, which is one of the hardest things to do. You could get shot with the arrows in the back on that.
Well, there's a few times the company was teetering on the edge, I can tell you, from a cash point of view.
Yeah.
But we managed to get through.
That's part of being in business, but but then to see, I could think it would be a little frustrating. It's like, man, I staked out this ground. I'm the one who mapped it out for you and showed you it could be done, and then here you guys come bouncing along, and people are throwing money at you because I've proven the concept. Thanks. So I hope there's a good reflection on you, and that you're able to do that more easily.
There was a venture capital fund in the UK that wanted to invest in us, but we weren't really looking for investment at the time. But they were so interested in what we were doing, they invested in a startup who was trying to do the same as us. So I take credit for them getting some money.
Well, all I'll say about that is the values and the technical skills and all that can't always be easily transferred over to some other organizations. The enemies of the Roman Empire would try and create Roman legions of their own, and it just didn't work for nobody really knows why. So hopefully you'll have some market protection in there. The Smallsat field, this is a thing that we really get into here. If you look at a pie chart of the partial plus full mission failure rates and add them all up, no matter, you can look at it as different charts and they'll add up to slightly different numbers, but it is awful. It's like 4 times out of 10 or more. You see this 40+% failure rate of the mission, partial to full. And I don't see that in other industries and that. What do you do at Clyde Space in the quality assurance side when you're producing CubeSats to make sure that this doesn't happen? You're producing CubeSats in bulk, and somehow you've got to refine the QA so that reliability is good.
Well, I think that, this could be quite a long answer, but I'm not going to make it that long. The reason is the failure rates are there because a lot of the early CubeSats were from universities, and I see 95% of the mission objectives were met before launch. It was a lot to do with learning about, all the integration and the design and getting the spacecraft ready. But, I think there's been a lot of university missions that are really not focused on the quality assurance side, more on the technology. And, like some universities were building all their systems from scratch, designing everything from scratch. It's incredibly difficult to do that and get it all right. There's always going to be something that's missed in there. The other thing is that a lot of the companies that are launching lots of spacecraft, their approach is we'll try it and see if it works, and we'll learn from that. And they are actually, I think, for a long time, Planet Lab had a minimum failure rate. I think it was 15%. If 15% of their satellites weren't failing, they were doing something wrong, and at maximum 30%. So they knew they were launching satellites that just weren't going to work. So that would also add to this figure. And the other thing is that I think is fundamental is, well, test is, I think, underestimated in terms of, is undervalued by some people in the sector. Testing is vital to make sure your satellite works. I've heard of satellites being launched where they haven't tested parts of it, and lo and behold, what doesn't work? That thing they didn't test. You need to test everything, and it needs to be thorough. And there's a reason why space can be expensive. I mean, we think our spacecraft are incredibly good value, but we know we're not the cheapest. But I look at the other companies that are cheaper than us, and I think, how can you do all the testing that's required for your satellite to make sure it's going to work and do it at that price? I just don't see it happening.
Right.
So what's the point in launching something? Where's the value in launching something that doesn't work? You'd rather spend 20% more and launch something that does work. I mean, I would if I were someone. So
yeah. There's a process order issue typically, and then the rush, the testing phase is on the back half of the schedule, and it's the thing that gets squished by people when trouble shows up in the front end of that production schedule. So
there's another thing that I think is forgotten in our sector, and there's a lot of new entrants who, and not everyone does this, but I've heard a few people that, like, oh, we don't need to know about the last 50 years of space flight and what the lessons learned are. We'll find out ourselves, and because we're great. But however, there's been a lot of really clever people that have done a lot of hard work to develop a set of guidelines about how you design and test satellites and you make them, what the quality level should be. And I think the trick is, for small satellites, is how you tailor them properly and appropriately so that your product is still high quality and reliable, but doesn't cost what a James Webb telescope is going to cost. You do need product assurance, and it needs to be controlled. So we've been ISO accredited since 2008. So we have our processes, and we follow them, and they get audited every 6 months now, actually. And that's important, because if you don't, especially when we're going to volume production, if you can't guarantee that every single thing that you produce has the same level of quality assurance and works the same way, then you're going to end up having failures, and there's going to be problems later. So that's the thing that's going to drive the failure rate figure in the opposite direction.
Right. So, what would you say to the academic leaders who go, well, it's just my students, and every year it's a new batch of students, and we don't really need to worry about processes because it's a different group of students producing a different satellite every year. We're not trying to, create a uniform product.
Well, I mean, those academics are probably learning how to manage a program with undergrads or postgrads to work on satellites. One of the programs that I've worked on a lot is the FalconSat program at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. They've got a great program. FalconSat is, what they do is they have, I think it's over 2 or 3 years. They have their students are all undergrads. It's a different cohort of team every year, so they need to do a handover, and their missions work. They do a great job. They're used by the AFRL to do different things, flying different experiments, and they operate the satellites from there. So they've got a great team that know how to make this work. And I think the students that come out of that program, the ones that I've seen anyway, are extremely good at what they do. They understand spacecraft, and they understand the processes needed to make it work as well.
That is a new program name for me, so Thank you. I'm going to go hunting for that later. Maybe you could shoot me a link. I guess it is coming into late April 2020 when we're recording this, and we're in the middle of the COVID thing. Is the UK locked down? It's not. It's weird here. It's spotty. The county that I'm in is locked down, but the next one over is not. So I could literally drive over there and go walk in the park. And businesses are operating normally. But a few miles away here, no, everything's shut down. So is the company operating right now, or is everybody furloughed? Or
Yeah, well, we've been operating continuously, but we have changed the way we're working. I think about 80% of us are working from home.
Huh.
And actually, it's worked out quite well for us because we have, there's two big projects we're working on, Eutelsat and Orbcom. So we're doing missions for them. They're both at various design stages. Orbcom starting manufacture a little bit, so all the subsystems. But we've mostly been able to do all of this at home. We have some people in the office, in the clean room, doing manufacturing and tests, but we're doing social distancing and all that type of thing with different processes in place. And I think in the UK, there's going to be shortly going to be a return to some form of normality, but it's going to need to be with different conditions. And I believe we're going to have to prove that we're meeting the social distancing guidelines. That we're not, so in the UK, it's countrywide that you're not meant to be doing. So I know, I see the news in the US is a bit different, but we've managed to keep going. I feel sorry for some businesses that really can't. I mean, the airlines, for example, and different types of shops and restaurants have had to close. It must be really difficult, but we're lucky that we can still work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's end on a happy note. And you may have covered this already, and if it is, well, let's find a second most. What mission have you worked on that you're the most proud of? I thought maybe it's the first one that you were talking about with baking the solar panels, but is there another one?
Well, there's been a lot of great missions and a lot of great people. We're blessed to work in a sector where there's some great, it's very exciting, putting things into space. I mean, who wouldn't want to? If you're an engineer, who wouldn't want to do that? But also, I've met a lot of great friends in the sector, so I'm working on different missions. But the mission I'm most proud of is UCube-1, which is a 3U CubeSat, and it was launched in 2014, and that was Scotland's first satellite. It was our first satellite. It was very difficult to make that work financially. We had half of our company working on it with pretty much no money, and just like managing our cash flow mainly, and managing the team and getting everything done that needed to be done to make that mission work. That was a real challenge. Apart from the fact that technically making a spacecraft is very difficult to do, especially your first one. So that, I think, is the proudest. That's what the mission I'm most proud of, and it also set our company up to be doing what we're doing just now. Without transitioning from components to doing spacecraft with that first mission, we would never be where we are today. Mm-hmm. So it was hugely pivotal to the business and to me.
Right on. Where can people go who are interested to find out more about AAC Clyde Space and keep up with the new developments?
Well, we are on social media. We actually do quite a lot of that. So on LinkedIn and Twitter and on Facebook, if you just search AAC Clyde Space, you'll find us. We also have a website which is quite good, which is fairly new, which is www.aac-clydespace. Oh, actually, that's wrong. We've got a different email address because we've got a .space in it, so it's aac-clyde.space is the website. Because if you've got a .space email address, it gets put into everyone's junk, so we've got a .com for that. So
okay. Interesting. I'll link to that in the description below. Well, fantastic. This has been a lot of fun. My guest today has been the founder and CSO of AAC Clyde Space, Craig Clark. Thanks for being here.
No problem. Thanks very much for asking me to come along as well. I really appreciate it, and maybe see you again soon.
This is Jason Kanigan from Cold Star Tech. Thanks a lot for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do want to get email notifications of upcoming episodes or episodes that have just been released, and maybe a little news sprinkled in here and there, you can sign up for email notifications at coldstartech.com/MSB. That's short for Make Space Boring. That's another little show that I do. It's once, twice, 3 times a week, something like that. Anytime there's news or an update on who I'm meeting and what I'm studying in the space field. So you can go check that out. On the YouTube channel, I can do something that I cannot do on Anchor for the audio only side of things. The YouTube channel allows me to have playlists, and so you might want to go to the channel, the Cold Star Tech channel, and check out those playlists, because you will find you can go down a rabbit hole basically into several areas like space law and policy, Smallsats, and I think that's a lot easier than trying to scroll through 130 episodes or something like that, looking for the thing that you want. So I recommend going and checking that out. And remember, if you're ready to take your space business to the next level, or you're a VC looking for deep and very valuable insight into a space company you're looking at investing in or investing further in, come and talk to us. Thanks for listening.